Hello to all of my BPTV friends and fans, my YouTube friends and fans, and Facebook friends and fans. I'm Alan Levine, the Talking Machine. I'm honored I got a Christmas gift early by my co-host and co-producer Maria. She said I'd get an artist beret, and so I got it on my head, and I'm forced to wear it the whole show because it's a great gift, and I thank Maria. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We're actually doing our 12th Maria's Teaches Us to Paint show. What an honor and a blessing. We won an award last month with our series of this. So who knew that after 6 shows that we'd win a series? This is our first year of the series. Had to give a little background, a little long-winded, but you know I'm the talking machine. So I'm going to turn it over to my great co-host and co-producer with our theme for today's show and a special guest. You can see who he is. You'll find out now. He's in front of the camera. Maria, how are you today?
I'm good. Welcome everybody. We are here on the slopes of Southside at Jono's Art Studio. A very special guest who's usually behind the camera, and you know, the brains behind this here. The BPTV Facility Director, Dave Cable. So he's here to paint a Northern Cardinal, and I heard he knows a little bit about birds, so he's going to learn how to paint one today. So. All right, so we're going to get started. So we're going to paint this Northern Cardinal, and you could see here we have the little wintry background on him. So we're going to start with our background, and then we'll get the bird going. So we're going to start with, I'm going to use the largest brush. This is a 1-inch brush, a little bit bigger than the 1-inch brush, but you guys have a little bit smaller one if you're more comfortable with that. And we always wet the brush first. And then what that does, it brings the bristles together and just dab that extra water off. And as you can see in the background, very, not a white sky, little hint of blue. The blue that we have is an ultramarine blue. It's very, very, very strong. So what we're going to do is start with white. You always introduce the color to the lighter color. So we're taking a generous amount of white, and then just with the corner of our brush, we'll go in just the corner of the blue, and we're going to we always put the other color next to the color that you're going to mix. That way you can keep pulling in more as you need it. So I'm just going to pull a little bit in, and you can see I'm flipping my brush back and forth to achieve the color that I want. Now acrylics dry slightly darker. So if I like this color right here, which I do, I'm going to add a little bit more white because it's not going to stay that color. It's going to get a little bit darker. So I'm going to add a little bit more white, and I'm just mixing that up. And then we're going to come in here and we're going to paint the background behind the bird's head, and then we'll work our way down and fill that in. So I'm coming in, I'm starting at the top of my canvas, and I'm just flipping my brush back and forth, filling this in. You can go side to side, up and down. It really doesn't matter too much. You can see I'm just grabbing some more paint. This probably looks really pale on the camera, but it is blue. It's a very light blue, and it will grow, you know, a little darker. And then you can see here, I'm going to add a little bit more blue here and there. I'll just throw it in, kind of mix it right on the canvas too. Need a little bit more white. And then to cut in, when you're coming in around any shape, I'm using the corner of my brush, just like this. You can grab a smaller brush to do that too, if you're more comfortable. So you can see the texture of the brush strokes, which I like that. If you're painting with acrylics or something, these are not as heavy a body as some of the acrylics are. When you have a heavier body acrylic, it tends to be thicker. You can leave some of those brush strokes and texture on the canvas. These are a little smoother, a little thinner, but I do like to build up the paint a little bit too. So you can see I just threw in a little bit more white Maybe that's a little cloud in there. And that's going to dry a little bit darker. Okay, so that's it for the background. I feel like I might a little bit blue up in here. So you can always add, we're working wet on wet. So when you're blending something in acrylics, you need to keep that wet edge, keep it moving. If we painted one side and then stopped and then went back, those colors would not mix. And we would have like, we'd see a line in there or something. So you want to keep that wet edge and keep the paint moving if you want to transition, you know, for a nice seamless background or the section that you're painting. So these guys are painting along. You're doing good, but you can take your time. I'm going to keep painting.
Well, you know I can't keep up yet,
yeah,
my co-producer and co-host,
so,
but I'm doing it pretty well.
So I'm going to start this middle section here. So we have the foreground, middle ground, then the background here with the sky. And this is just to suggest trees. In the distance, we don't need to see every tree. We don't need to see all the branches. We'll put these other trees in later. But we just want to create that just illusion that there's trees or mountains or something in the background. So what we're going to do, we want these colors to still be harmonious with the sky. We're using the same colors, but so I'm going to take white again, and I'm going to grab a little bit of blue, again, put that beside, and then we want to warm it up a little bit and give it a little bit of a lavender hue. And because in nature, when you see things in the distance, aerial perspective, they tend to have that purple lavender hue. So we're going to do that. That's just the way shadows look and lighting looks. So we have purple in our palette, but you could also, we have red and blue. If you have the primary colors, you can always mix purple too. But I put it in there just to save time for mixing. So I'm going to take a little bit. Now this purple, I just want a tiny, tiny bit. So I'm pulling it over here because again, it's going to get a little darker. And now this, we want it to be at least a couple shades darker than the sky. So if your sky is a little darker than mine, then make your tree area darker than that.
Mine's a little darker than yours.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to make it look like mine.
You know I'm heavy-handed,
yeah,
so
that's
I'm
okay.
practicing that.
So it can be a mix, and even as they're painting this, some areas can be a little darker, some can be lighter. So I have it, I'm going to start, this ground line kind of starts right here under the belly of the bird. So I'm just going to come across like this, just to establish my line, and then it's going to stay above this branch. And now what we're going to do is paint the brush strokes vertically, okay? They don't have to go all the way up in one brush stroke, but when you put the paint on vertically, again, it will create some texture because the trees would be vertical. Now that's looking a little more purple, which is okay. I'm going to throw in, I feel like I want a little bit more blue in here. And on the picture, it's a little darker on the right side than it is on the left side. And then just add white. I like to mix right on the canvas too. Just, why not, right?
You're so advanced.
Well, no, just you can mix.
Thank you for your help.
Because you can. So again, coming in, cutting in around here. You can use a smaller brush if you want. And I think, so I blocked it in, but I think I am going to use, I'm going to switch to the 1/2-inch flat shader. Okay, so that's the 1/2-inch flat shader. Once I block that in, because I think that will give us a little bit more interest in these trees. So we can come in, so when I come here on this top row, I want to cover our pencil line. Oh, by the way, too, I forgot to mention. So we have this on YouTube, and it's also available on the BPTV YouTube. But on my YouTube, I share a 10-minute video how to draw these designs. If you get the art kit from us at the studio, we most of the time have a tracer that you could trace it. So if you trace it, you're going to end up with this line, a graphite line. If you draw it, I usually suggest drawing it with, say, watercolors or something that will dissolve into the paint. You still want to hide those. So what I want to make sure is I put enough opaque paint on here to cover this line. So that's what I'm doing right now. But when I paint this line, instead of just coming straight across, I'm going to kind of smush it and move it around and give it a little bit of a little bumpy texture on the top, because that would be the trees. See how I'm just holding the brush vertically also? And I'm just pouncing on the canvas. And then what I'll do is just pull that down. Again, keeping those brush strokes vertical while it's wet, just pull that down. And that way, that kind of, it looks like, could be trees, you know, top of a mountain. And there's some areas where if it didn't cover as well, that's just the canvas. I'll just add a little more. And then I'll come along and do that on this side as well. So just kind of pounce the brush down. You can see it's making a little bumpy texture there. Because the trees, they wouldn't all be perfectly smooth, right? They'd be different heights and different levels. And then, as like I said, if it dries, like this is looking a little more purpley, but that's okay. Purpley, is that a word? I'm not sure.
Yes.
So, and then
on this show it is.
Okay. And then so I'm just adding just some little highlights just here and there that could be this suggestion of distant trees. Maybe they're birch trees or they're just trees that have snow on them. That's all they are, just little vertical lines. That's it. We're going to add those other trees later. But you can see just some vertical lines. And that's just with the brush strokes. All right? And then that's going to dry. And then we're going to come in and paint underneath the bird between these branches. We can even cover up the branches if we have to and put that back in. Now what we want to do here is we want this ground to be a little bit different color. Keep forgetting my pickle. We want this to be a little bit different color than this because this is brighter. This is the ground, the snow's laying there, and I have a little bit warmer tone. Almost looks like a beigey, warm gray. So what we're using is the same colors but less blue and a very tiny hint of red. So you don't want pink snow, but if it gets a little pinker, that's okay. But it almost has like a little bit of a tan, a warm tan color. So I have some of those. I'm using still the blue and the purple because what that does is you're using all of the same colors. It keeps the painting more harmonious. You're using all the same colors. We only have 6 colors in our palette, and we could actually be doing this with just 5. But I added the purple without mixing the purple.
And thank you for doing that.
Yeah, so I took a tiny bit of red, and I'm just going to introduce that. And then I feel like it's still going to be a little too pink, so what other color should we add that we wanted to keep it warm, less red, but keep it warm?
Yellow.
Yes. Yes.
Thanks for being on the show, Dave.
I showed you what it looks like if you had too much yellow. So I put yellow there. I'm going to pull back my red. If you need a plate. Oh, I have more. I have more. So by adding the yellow to the red, you can see it's almost a tan. It's like a warm beigey tan. All right. And what we're going to do with that, and I put some of that purple in there too, because again, shadows in nature tend to have that purple look. So on the picture that I created when I designed this, we're doing more like we're outlining this again. We're holding the brush horizontally. We're just coming in. We can pretty much just block this all in. Oops, my canvas is moving. We can block this in, but still leave. You can see some little white parts of the canvas is showing, and that's okay because that we can just add our white highlights. And then there's a little bit, we are going to put these trees right in here. So where our trees are going, that's where we want to put a little bit of a shadow. So we're blocking in. I should have taped my canvas down. It keeps moving on me. And you can see I just went across the bird's tail. I can still see where it is, but that just makes it a little bit easier. So just kind of come down. I'll leave maybe about an inch here where I didn't go all the way down because we're going to put a different color there. And then I want to add a little bit of a shadow area, which we can still add once we get the tree there, but just to give me an indication of where I'm putting those trees, which is going to be, I'll make it a little darker so you can see. That's going to be right here. So those trees are going to be here, and I'm just cleaning off my brush. A lot of times when I'm painting, I just clean off my brush. Some color right there. That could look like...
I'm a step behind.
Yeah.
I go with the red, and then I go with the
little bit
yellow.
of yellow, yes.
Yeah.
And it gives you a nice,
red,
yeah, that
then
looks
a
good.
little bit of yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then just add, so for the shadows, you're just same color, but add a little bit more of that purple. And then as this dries, you'll see I'm going to clean my brush, and this dries really quickly. So if I clean off my brush, and go in just to the pure clean white. I don't even have to put it on my palette. I'm just putting it right on the canvas. I want some nice, you can see by doing that beigey color and that little bit of lavender. Now if I come in with my white, you can see how pretty that snow looks. Now I'm not going to do that all right now because I want to establish where those trees are going, but you can see how pretty that white will show up now. Okay, so that's the area there. And then we're just going to come in with the bottom, similar colors to the tree area. Maybe a little bit more blue on the bottom. I almost feel like I need
You're
it to
throwing
be...
too many colors at me.
I know, same colors as the tree area, but then I'm just going to, I just want it to stand out a little bit differently than that upper, just similar. You can see mine's like a dirty gray lavender color. And I'm just kind of, again, kind of cleaning off my brush, just coming across like this and just filling in. And you can see this is going to be kind of grassy. So if I take my, yeah, you're good. Take your time, guys.
I am.
Yeah, and now when I'm filling this in, I know there's going to be some little bushy, grassy areas. So I'm just taking my brush and push it down at the bottom and then pull up like that. But we'll add some more of those details. So what I try to do is as I'm painting, instead of just painting any direction, I think about what am I painting? Is it something that has texture that's vertical or horizontal? Is it grass? Is it a tree? And then try to create those brush strokes in that same direction. That also helps again. Like this is just the background, but instead of just painting it straight across, then I have to do more work to establish the fact that that's like a grass or a bushy area. So I just fill it in and just have my brush, you know, painted in that direction. So it's just a way of just saving time. Not that we're in a rush, but this is something, we do these pretty quickly here. If you're at home, you can take a couple hours to paint this. We do this pretty quick so that we can get it filmed and all. But the more you paint, the more you learn, and you do get a little bit quicker anyway. So that's pretty much it for the background. We want to keep this loose and just kind of simple because we want our emphasis to be on the bird. Going to throw in the trees in the background. We probably will add to them, but right here we have these two trees coming up, and we're just going to put them on top. That's why we had to do that background first, because the trees come in front. So I'm just going into the white, and I'm putting, I take that back. I'm going to do something first. I'm going to make a dark gray, a little bit of white, and the black is obviously very dark. So I'm just going to establish a nice little color here, like a charcoal color, not solid black. And then I'm going to grab my white, and I'm putting my white on one corner and that charcoal on the other. This should work, okay. And then I'm coming up here. So our light source is on the right side because of the shadows, the way the shadow is on the tree. So I'm just pushing my brush down and I'm pulling it up. It's a little darker right now, but I'm going to add the little highlight. So there's just two tree trunks, okay? That's all we're doing there. Then as it dries, and we'll add the white, like on this side. That's like the snow, or I figure they're like birch trees. They're kind of two together. Could even do a third one if you wanted to, since they grow with like multiple trunks. Now that's just the trunk. The rest of the trees I'm just mixing black and white on my brush, which is making it more of a gray. And just come out with your little branches here, and I took the little round brush. So that the little thin round brush, you always pull the paint like this and twirl the brush to keep that little point on the brush. And then a little bit of water usually makes the paint flow nice, and then hold the brush up like this and just use the tip of the brush, and then you'll get some nice little twigs there. So we're just going to just loosely like throw them in. We can come back and add more. I just want to establish the placement of this tree, okay, these little trees. So I'm just doing that, and we'll add some little white highlights like there's snow on them or something. So that's all we did there. And then you can see with that same color, that little shadow now, it's going to make sense. We're just going to darken a little bit. So our light source is on the right, and the shadows here on the left. So we'll add our little highlights to them later, okay? And that's pretty much it for the background. We're going to work on the bird. So the Northern Cardinals, they don't migrate either, so they're here all the time. So if you want to feed them during the winter, they like seeds and insects and
I've
raisins.
seen them in my neighborhood in Bethel
They love
Park.
raisins. They like all sorts of different things. So we're going to zoom in on the bird and paint this bird, show a little bit more detail with that, okay? All right, so we have our trees established. We'll highlight them a little bit more. We did establish our light sources coming from the right side because our shadows are on the left. So now we're going to paint the bird, okay? So we are going to kind of outline him a little bit and then block him in, and you'll see with the layers and just using the right brush how easy that comes along. Okay.
What brush are we using for
So what we're going to do is we're going to use the little fine pointer, little pointer liner brush,
Pay
little round
attention,
brush.
everybody.
But to mix the color so that this brush doesn't get all messed up, we're going to just grab any other brush, flat, rod, whatever, 1/2 inch. Let's just mix the color first, because what we want to do is outline the bird a little bit. So instead of painting him red and then outlining him in a darker color, he'll get too cartoony looking. So if we outline him a little bit, and then as we fill in, we cover up some of those lines. It's just an easier way to establish that outer color. So we're taking some white, and we are taking some black. And we're going to make like a charcoal color, okay? And you can see I'm just flipping. Whenever you mix your paint, try to flip the brush as opposed like doing that kind of thing.
A little bit of black?
Yeah, like a charcoal gray. And then we're going to add some red. And the reason we're adding red is we don't want it to be pink, but we want like a dirty gray red color. It's going to dry a little darker. I think I need a little bit more black in here. So you can see as I'm mixing a color, instead of staying on that same section, I move it to another section so I don't keep pulling in the same colors. So I have a gray with a little bit of that red kind of in there, and that's going to dry a little bit darker. Now what we're doing with this, I just added a touch more black in here if I want to grab it. So what we're doing is we're coming in and using usually a little bit of water. Anytime you're using this type of a brush and you want to pull it again, pull that little point, and you want that a little bit more of an inky consistency, put some water in here. And what we're doing is we're outlining the bird. Now the feathers are this way, this direction. So you can see I'm coming in like this, then the feathers are like this, the feathers on its back, its wings. I'm establishing, there's a little line here that suggests where his face is, and you can see here. So all I'm doing, I'm looking at my picture, and you can see here, so I'm adding a little bit of water to it too. And a lot of this will get covered up. And some areas you may want it a little bit darker, just so it will establish where the outline of the bird is against that background. But you can see I'm painting these little brush strokes. If I come down below the feather and then pull up and lift up my brush, how that creates, it already looks like feathers. It's just all in the brush and using it in the right direction. You don't have to be a pro to do this. You just pay attention to what.
Thank you for these tips.
Yeah. So I'm going to just so as I'm outlining, I'm going to ask, does anybody know anything about birds or cardinals that we would want to know about? Maybe Dave knows something about
Al
cardinals?
likes to talk about this one.
Yeah,
He does?
the males are bright red, and the females are brownish.
Yes.
And when they come around spiritually, it's supposed to represent somebody who might have passed on to
Sure.
heaven.
A lot of people have stories.
And
that
I see them
happens.
every once in a while.
Yeah.
And my dad passed away 13 years ago, and my mom 35 years ago, so I always think they're coming to see me.
Yeah, I believe that too. Yeah.
Just thought I'd share that.
That happened
Thanks,
when
Dave.
Jono's mom passed. He had cardinals in his face it was so overwhelming. There was no denying that. And then it kind of settled down after a while. But anyway, so you can see here, I'm just you can see that the little, just light little, you can see if I just do this, where I just barely touch the canvas and pick it up, how that makes like little feather marks. And then what I'm doing, I'm adding a little bit more black, because in this area here where his wings lay, it would be a little bit darker here and a little bit darker where his wing lays, and then just do some little like contour lines just here and there, and then under this branch would be a little bit darker from the shadow of that, and then the tail feathers. And since I have my little brush and I have black on my brush, I'm going to do his the little mask on his face. So the females do not have the black mask on their face, and the males, of course, are this brilliant, beautiful red to attract the female. Typically birds, the male birds are always more colorful to attract the female, because the female is the one that's going to make the decisions as to whether she picks them or not. So, you know, they have to do whatever they can to attract the female, right?
Right, and then the females are dull colors so they can hide the nests
Oh,
easier from
yes.
predators.
Oh, that makes sense, right. So that if they have they're sitting on the nest with their babies or whatever.
Yeah, they
so
don't want to draw attention to themselves.
that makes sense.
And then you always notice how birds are always eating. Well, in grade school, they told us the birds had to eat their weight in food. Well, I just learned that about 6 months ago, that birds eat about a third or a quarter of their weight each time they go to eat each day.
Oh, yeah, they do. They
Yeah,
eat a
but
lot.
it's not a whole body weight.
Right, right.
But I found that out, but that's what you learn, like in science in school.
Sure.
We learn things.
They eat all the time.
So I always
constantly.
would tell people, you know, they're eating their weight. And here I was wrong for about 30 years.
Uh-oh.
Not you, Al.
Yes, I truly was. Thank you,
It
Dave.
happens. So, okay, so I outlined my bird, and I'm coming in now with, this is the fun part, my favorite brushes, the filbert brushes. So these brushes have a curved tip, and they're rounded. So we have a smaller one and a larger one. So I'm using the larger filbert brush. And again, we're going to wet it, take the extra water off. We're going right into our red, our bright red. Pull that on our palette. And I'm just going to mix, I'm taking some of that other mixture and just want to dirty it up just a tiny bit. Now, if we had green on in our palette, now we can make green, yellow and blue make green.
Yes.
You could also knock the red back, meaning we don't want it to be so intense. We still want it to be red, but we can also add green to it, which is the opposite on the color wheel. But we don't even have to go into that. We have this color here. We just want it a little bit darker. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint most of the bird, the feathers. Again, I'm keeping my brush more on like a 45-degree angle. Make sure the paint in the brush is nice and have a nice chiseled edge. And I'm coming I actually should start here. Think of feathers like tiles on a roof. If you put a roof on, you put the lower shingles on first, okay?
Yeah.
So you want the lower feathers first, and then the feathers as they are on the wings and the bird, they are on top. So that's the way we're painting it. So we're coming in here, and we're painting the lower feathers first. It really doesn't matter too much with this
Do I leave a
process.
space for the eye? Because I see an eye
Yes.
on here, but
Yes.
okay. Just
So-
wanted to check before I go in there too strong.
Yeah, and you can leave parts of this lighter and darker. You can see then that might be a little highlight. But what we're doing, again, and you can see I'm going over those lines because that just gives me some dimension. This is actually more of a glazing technique here where we can still see that line underneath. So the reason I'm doing this in this direction, again, as it builds up texture, it will create the texture in the direction that the feathers lay.
And what color did you add with this?
So I just used the gray that we had,
Alright.
or just a little bit of black is all you need. A little bit of black, and then I'm coming in. Now, as we get here, we'll have to come up this way. And then when I get to the edge of the body, like the breast of the bird and the belly, I'm just going to pull my brush outward and let that little tail
So up for the back,
up.
down for
Yes.
the front.
Now, it really didn't matter too much for this first layer, but you will see with the next layer why you have to start at the bottom. So that
Okay.
was just kind of more of a practice brush stroke. And as we get into like his crest and the smaller areas, we also have a small little 1/4 inch filbert that we're going to grab and just fill that crest in. Now I'm purposely going over that outline.
We're doing it light, right? We're not trying to get rid of all
Yeah, you can, either way, yeah, you can have some light areas, but I'd still block it in.
Well, I mean, with the other paint on there, I didn't want to.
Yeah, no, that looks good.
All right.
Yep, and just kind of established, you can already see, you can see some texture of my brush strokes, and that helps establish which direction the feathers are laying, and then get the tail in there. Now, I don't know if you could see this on camera, but I did accidentally drip some little red dots on here. But we're going to have little berries on our branch, so that's just going to be my berries. So when you paint...
Do I mix any white with the red? 'Cause I
No,
missed
not
that.
yet.
Okay.
So you can see I'm purposely going over those lines, most of them, because I don't want it to look like very cartoony. I want it to be a little bit more realistic. So I painted over those gray lines. I could still see them, and the bird's darker on the edges, the outline, but...
Thanks for that tip.
Yeah, so we have them there. Now, we need to make the bird's feathers brighter and lighter in some areas. So what color do we add to the red to make some of those the colors on the feathers brighter,
White.
lighter?
White.
We can use white, and we will use a little bit, but if we use just white, what does red and white make?
Pink.
Pink. And we don't want this pink cardinal, right? I mean, you could. It's your painting.
No,
you can go
I don't
for it.
want that.
So what other color do we have in our palette that's brighter? Yes. So we're going to clean. I just cleaned my brush. I just felt like there was too much paint building up on it. So I'm going to take my red, nice clean red, and I'm going to put it here. And I'm going to take some yellow and put it beside the red. And then I'm going to pull it into the red just enough where it starts to get a little orange, but it's still red, and it's going to dry a little darker. And now what we're coming in with this, so we still have our 1/4 inch little filbert. Now when I come down to do those feathers, before we had the bigger brush, so we were just blocking in. And make sure when you mix your color, then you always go like this and keep that flat chiseled edge on your brush. So now we're going to start below, and you'll see why. And you don't go over every feather here, just pick out some. So I think like this feather would be maybe more in the front. So I'm going to lay my brush down and pick it up. And you can see I'm not covering all of this. I'm just doing some. We're not painting every little feather here. We're just painting some of them. And then these, I'm going to leave this darker area here. I'm going to, again, paint some more on top. And you can see how it's starting to build up the feathers because I'm overlapping some of them. And then I'm putting them beside the other brush strokes. And then his belly, it's really warmer here. And then maybe just a little there. Now I still have this mixture, red, a little bit of yellow, but I am going to add a touch of white. Not too much though, because we don't want it to get too pink on us. This red is actually very orange to begin with, but so if I add a little bit of white, I'm again not going to do every feather. I'm just going to pick out some here and there. I feel like this is actually, well, not too bad. I feel like it's almost too big. I'm going to grab my little liner, little round brush here. So this is the warmer red, a little bit of white. Now you'll see here when I come in, because we want it to show up, I'm just pulling just here and there, not every feather, and there again, lay them like a shingle. This one's over top of that one. You can
I'm trying to build that roof on this bird.
Yeah, so you see his little, how his feathers are popping up, and then he has his face, the feathers here, and then some little highlights up here. There's a light source is on the right side, so I'll throw some little highlights up here. So again, we're not painting it like a photograph. It doesn't have to be every little feather, every detail, but just put some little highlights on his feathers. And then the breast of the bird too, again with the light, we would put our little feathers. So I'm, to do this feather on his breast, I want this shape. So I'm pushing down and pulling up. We need to start up above though because the feathers are coming down, but we also want to layer them like a shingle. So I'm going to start below, but the brush stroke starts at the top and comes down, which is the opposite of what we're doing, because you can see how I need to get that brush stroke. And you can see if I start up above and come down, with the brush stroke, but start them at the bottom, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it
Just
does.
kind of, you can see how a little bit of those little highlights there, how it looks a little feathery. And then you just kind of go back in. You feel, if you see like, oh, I just want to pick out a couple little, just little spots here and there. Again, this is our interpretation of a cardinal. It's not.
Do I paint its beak red there? Or?
Yes, so their beaks are a cone-shaped beak. They're very orange, really
they're
orange.
orange?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I gotta.
So that's, I'm gonna let him dry. If I feel like he needs any highlights or shadows, because we can always come in, like under here, it looks like it needs a little shadow here and there. You can always add the little shadows and highlights. What you do is you just go back in, you know, and you just do that with everything. Light and shadow, that's really all painting is just knowing where to put the light and the shadow. And I even put a little bit of this color on his black mask, because it's not necessarily, if it's just all straight black, sometimes it's in the painting, even though in nature it might be, but when you paint something and that's the only thing on the canvas that's just so dark, it looks like a hole in the canvas. You can see I lightened his mask up a little bit.
Okay.
And then, like I said, you can see where he needs maybe a little bit of some shadow here and there.
To lighten it up, I have to put yellow with the red.
Yellow with the red, and I did add a little bit of white as I went in. It's just layer like a lasagna, like a lasagna.
Whoa, now
Like
you're talking.
Yeah, I do think of food a lot, way too much more than I should.
That's all right.
Yeah, so now I'm coming in with red and the yellow to make a really bright orange. Their beaks are very bright, and that probably too is to help attract the female, I would guess.
Well, that's what nature does.
Yeah. So I still have my little round brush, and I'm with that nice little point. If it gets too, the belly of the brush gets too fat, just rinse it and get some of that paint, extra paint. And now I can see I have a nice little point again. Come in, and I'm just going to lay in that orange, and I'm going to leave a little bit lighter at the top. I'm going to put a little bit more yellow just right up here again to make it look brighter. And then I'm going to mix a little bit of a darker orange. And again, this is something you can go in and play with as it dries, look at it the next day, whatever, and pick out little details. I want the bottom of his beak to just be a little bit darker. I don't necessarily want to paint that line like I don't want him to look like a big smiley face on his beak, you know. But if I put right where that line between his upper and lower and just put a little bit of that shadow in there, that kind of establishes that. And then I have my little brush here. I'll come in and do his eye. Now I purposely left that little white area right in here where his eye is. So I'm not going to fill that all in. I'm going to leave some of that white, and you'll see why. So to make the little circle, I'm going to paint the letter C on the left side and the backward C on the right side, and that'll give you a nice little circle.
I remember when we did that before.
Yeah.
Go with the C.
Yeah, and then you can see if I leave a little bit of that white, if you cover it up, you can always add. You don't want it too wide, but if we don't leave that, you can't see his eye. We'll put a couple little feathers up there, cover that in. I still feel like his mask is a little bit too dark. I guess they really are dark, but yeah. And then pretty much just look at it and see. I'm going to work on the branch and everything now, but I just wanted to pick out a couple little feathers. And again, this is a painting, so you can add more yellow, you can add more red. Just have fun with it. This is, again, it's art. It's your interpretation of this bird. And then I'm coming in, I'm going to do the branch. Now the branches should be really fun, quick. Taking a half inch flat shader, my black and white.
And what brush do I use for the eye?
I use the same little round brush.
The same little round one like
the point, the little tiny round, this one, the little round with the point.
Like that?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. And what color do I use with that?
Just black for the eye.
Okay, so just do my C.
Yep, and then I just left the white around it. And if you accidentally cover up just add a little bit of, tiny bit of white around his eye.
I might have to do that.
Yeah, that's fine. So what I'm doing is I'm going to come in with my branch. I have black and white on my brush at the same time. And I'm just pushing this around. I have my flat shader. I'm holding it horizontally and I'm coming up. Now we want to make sure these branches cross over the plane of that background and the foreground. And that way, that puts the cardinal in the front. You can see how we went across there, and I could see I need a little bit of color under there. And then we're coming in here. I'm just pulling my brush. You can get the smaller, thin brush for the branches too, but I just want to get my branch going here. And then there's a little one. I have a little branch over here. So I just mixed the black with the white, putting it on at the same time. But then I'll come in with my brush. I'm going to add a little bit of blue to my white because I want a little bit of a shadow on this snow. So you can see that. I'm adding my snow. So now I'm coming in, I put a little bit of blue in with the white and made the snow. So it looks like a little bit of shadow here. Again, we're working dark to light, and I'm just laying this on the branches. Then I'll clean my brush and come in with white, just the white, and not cover all of that, but just here and there, just lay it on top. And you could see by bringing that branch in front of the bird, that puts him, you know, that brings it in front of him, puts him on the branch, and I'm just kind of laying that over. I feel like I need a little one here, but you definitely need to make sure these branches, you can make more or less, whatever you choose, but make sure they cross over that middle ground and then the background where the trees are. And then I'm just going to mix up, and I'm just using whatever's on my palette, just mix up a tan color, and then I make sure I get his little legs are in here. So this one,
I was just going to ask you
yeah,
about that.
so this leg,
What do I put with the leg?
so
Like a tannish?
I just mixed black and tan. I just muddied up all my colors. Basically, you just need a dirty tan or a gray color. But this one leg comes from right here in front, and then it comes out, and then they have their little toes wrap around the branch. And then this leg is behind, coming out from behind, and then his little toes. And then you can add a little highlight on those, and then the feathers would come kind of over where his little legs come out. Just kind of go over that. So I could see mine still needs some little highlights and shadows and all, but I'm going to let it dry a little bit more. And I'm going to make sure when you do his eye, I purposely left a little white highlight in there. But if you don't have that little white highlight, it looks like a shark eye. So you got to come in and get that little tiny white dot, which is,
yeah, I think I'm
brings
going to
it to
have
life.
to do that. I got a
Yeah.
half shark eye.
yeah, it's okay. And then since I have that, I'm going to do a tiny little highlight on just the top of his beak. And I'll just clean off my brush. I would just clean off my brush with whatever's on there. I'm like, okay, I need some white here, just throw it there. So that's the bird. I'm gonna let him dry a little bit. For the berries, we can do a couple different things. Let me try. You can take, if you have a brush is, like this one's a little bit bigger. You can see the end of it's a little fatter. You can do this for the berries if you want. Let's see how big they come out. A little bit too small. Let's see, I'm going to take a bigger brush. I want my berries, that's a good berry size. So I have a bigger brush, and just look how cute they are. So I'm just dipping it right in the paint. And I already had some splatters of red on my canvas, and that's okay. I'm just leaving them there right here. There's some yellow in there.
Mine look like the apples from my first one.
Yeah, yeah. The very first episode we did, that was an intense painting too when I think about it. We did a lot there. Took forever, but yeah, Alan did apples on his trees, but if it was like a real tree, they were like volleyball size
Yes.
apples, right, in relation to the size of the tree. But it was cute. I loved it.
Thank you.
There are your berries, you know, just here and there. Now, because I dipped them, that adds a whole lot of paint to canvas. So they're going to take longer to dry. I really would love to put a little highlight on each berry, but I can't right now because they're wet. So after they dry, I'll put a little tiny dot on some of them, maybe some of the bigger ones. And then we have to make sure that our berries are connected to the branches, right? So I'll take, again, I'm just cleaning off my brush, just grabbing whatever's mixing up. These plates are the foam plates. If you use a paper plate, grab one that's coated so that your paints don't absorb too much into the plate. So I just grabbed that color. I don't want it too black, again, too dark. Just a nice charcoal or a dirty charcoal brown color. And I'm just connecting my little berries. There could even be a couple little stems that don't have a berry on it that maybe the cardinal ate, because they do eat berries and insects and seeds, and they love raisins. I know that. They eat raisins at my house.
Yeah, that was a great video the other day.
Yeah, the cardinals. I have, oh my gosh, we have so many. Okay, and we used to have one, I called him Ruby.
Ah.
And he used to come every day, any time of the day, whatever time I called him.
Wow.
And I'd go out, and it could be 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 11 o'clock, and he loved the organic 12-grain bread that we had.
No way.
Jono thought I was eating all the bread, and we did kind of go through a lot of bread. But I would go out and I'd say, Ruby, and wherever he was, it would take him a minute or two. He'd come, he'd fly right up and eat this bread. So we did that for about a month or so. So that was kind of cool. But and that was something that was okay. Bread's not that great for birds. There's not much nutrition, but this was organic, and it had 12 grains in it. So.
There you go.
But
You
white
can't do
bread is
better
really
than
not
that.
good for birds. It's like junk food for birds. It
Or
doesn't,
even people.
Right, but I mean, it fills them up, but it doesn't give them any nutrition or anything. It's really not great for birds or ducks or any of that. So
Right.
take the ducks peas or something like that. Frozen peas are good if you want to go feed the ducks. But anyway, that's a little bird food lesson there. So, okay,
Thank you very much.
One really important thing we have to make sure we add. The males and females are always in pairs. They mate for life. I do believe they mate
Yes.
for life. I think so.
I've
They're
heard that.
always in pairs. So the little female, I'm going to make a brown. Again, I'm just mixing the colors. They're all working out here for me. And I'm going to put in a little bit of black in there. I'm going to put a little female. I'm just going to put a little dot because she's so far away. But that's my female has a really
Can I
big
make
head.
my little birds? I like doing birds, you know, up
In the
that
sky.
top part. Yeah.
Yeah, and we could do, so I take my little brush and we can just do some little,
That's one of my fun
couple
things.
little birds here and there. And then I just need to look and see, we need to add some of our little grasses and our snow. So I'm going to take the same colors you used at the bottom. We'll add some more some yellow in there. I'm just grabbing anything, some white. They're not showing up very well. And just get some little blades of grass or whatever you want that to be down there. Kind of more in this section here. And on my original, it was like darker. It was darker in here first. So then my white pieces would show, because there might be snow on that too.
Oh, wow.
And then we need to add a little bit of highlights on my tree. And we're going to touch these up and come back. We will reveal the finished product. And then some snow, a toothbrush, save your old toothbrushes. Because if you paint, they make great snow and speckles and freckles on things.
I never thought of that.
Oh my gosh, they're perfect. So we are going to use, let's see, I'm going to use still this little round brush. I'm going to dip it into the white. I did put water on it, and I didn't take the water off the brush. So I'm going to try this one and see how it works. So I'm going to tap, I'm going to hold a brush in my left hand, and I'm going to tap.
Oh my goodness.
Ooh, that looks kind of good. And then see that little snowflakes? And they're on top of the bird, they're everywhere. So you can put as much snow as you want. But the toothbrush, you just grab it and the little bristles, and it flings they make really good stars if you do a celestial painting, but the toothbrushes are really good for that. I feel like it's getting on my face too, but that's okay. So that's some of our snow in here. I feel like I need a little bit more over here. Oh, that's a big one there. All right, and then we're just going to look and see whatever we might need to add. And that's pretty much it. I'm not crazy about that thing across his belly, so I can cover that with red. But I think we're good for right now. I'm gonna let it dry a little bit. We're going to finish up the details. We're going to let these guys finish up, and we're going to reveal the other painting, and then also the next episode, which will be 2024,
Yes,
January
crazy.
2024. We're going to have a special guest, and we're going to paint something that was from an inspiration from his actual photograph. This is down in the city of Pittsburgh, and there were these big sheets of ice on the river. But we're going to have fun next year. We're going to kick it up a notch. We're going to use our imaginations a little bit. And he suggested, why not put a polar bear on the little iceberg going down the river? I said, okay, but then we have to add a black and gold scarf on them. So that's how this happened. So this
What
is
a
going
great
to be,
story and a great
and
guest
I
coming.
call this one Go with the Flow. So this is January's episode. So that'll be fun. So anyway, we're going to be back to reveal our finished paintings. Okay, so we finished our paintings. Now these guys, this is pretty intense painting. They did a great job. Of course, we want to spend more time on them maybe, but for a short amount of time, they did a really good job. So I have paint all over me. It happens. It comes off with soap and water, so don't worry about that. And so we finished our Cardinals. We call this the visitor. So let's reveal our paintings, guys.
All right.
All
There
right.
we go.
That looks great.
Maria,
Good
thank
job.
you so much for your tips and how to mix colors.
We got Dave out from behind the
You
camera.
did. I don't feel like I did too much in front of the camera other
It's
than
awesome.
paint,
It's awesome. You
but
did a
thank
good
you
job.
guys.
You're very
job.
welcome.
What a good way to finish off the year.
It was truly with a bang that we ended this year.
Yes.
My 12th painting. I'm going to hang them in my bedroom, 3 rows of 4, and they'll be in my bedroom so I can see them each day.
You have
Yes.
to post that on Facebook,
Yay.
Al.
I will when I do it.
Yes. Also, if you use we use the canvas board, you put a little office clip on there, a binder clip, and you can hang them just like that. It makes it really easy. They come in different colors and everything too. So that's it. So hopefully we'll see you next year, and that we're inspiring you to paint. Anybody can paint. You just follow the little pickle. It's just paint. You can do it too, right? Good
Yes.
job. That's
Well,
very good.
thank-
Kind of watercolory. I like it.
All
Very
right.
nice.
Thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you, Maria.
Yep.
Thank
And
you, Al.
You're
Yay.
welcome, and please stay tuned for next year, the first Friday in January. We have that surprise, and we're going to do that. I'm honored and blessed that all the fans are watching us. Check out all the YouTube tutorials with Maria teaches us to paint.
Okay.